Johnny Depp's attorney from the infamous Depp v. Heard trial is weighing in on Baldoni v. Blake. We have Vanderpump Rules, I guess former Vanderpump Rules stars Ariana Madix and Katie Maloney that are at odds over There's Something About Her sandwich shop. And we're also going to be revisiting Armie Hammer and that whole scandal. Was he ever convicted? What went down? Because people are talking about him now that I outed Blake Lively for getting him fired off the set of Gossip Girl. So we have a lot that we'll get into today. Let's get ready. Let's get it. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. What's going on, guys? Welcome on in. Happy Thursday. I'm trying to channel my inner Zen when it's been a morning. I feel like one of Blake Lively's dragons and I need to rip somebody's head off. So I'm glad that we are here. I'm glad that we are in it to win it. We're doing the damn thing. Listen, a lot of us work very, very hard. Shout out to my girl, my friend, Donna Bowling. What's up, Donna Bowling? She was just on the Demois podcast. Shout out to Demois. I know I've often had my critiques about Demois, so I doubt they would ever have me on their podcast. But I'm glad that they had Donna on. Donna's been another great sounding board and voice covering all the Baldoni Blake stuff. So if you guys need some additional content to listen to, definitely go check out Donna Bowling from Daily Dose Donna on the Demois podcast. Go show her some love. Let them know that you're all up in it. Okay. And also just I got this really sweet message that I read in my DMs this morning from this woman that DM'd me. She said, "Hi, Zack. I've been watching your coverage of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, but I just felt compelled to tell you that the last 10 minutes of Wednesday's episode, the Blake Lively getting sued again video, was one of the most refreshing, honest, and quite frankly, brave commentary that I've seen in a while. Outside of those who would quickly and easily be labeled MAGA for going against any far left narrative, I completely agree with what you said, word for word. And I am also a registered independent. I appreciate your bravery to speak your mind openly and give a voice to the rest of us who don't feel safe to openly express our viewpoints, because we frankly don't care for either side to berate us for not choosing their side. I will encourage others to watch your videos. This is the objective viewpoint that America needs. Willingness to have an open dialogue. Keep up the excellent work." And I wanted to read that because, yes, Savannah, we just started. You just came right in. But I wanted to read this message because it meant a lot to me. Especially, like as I said, I had a really annoying, stressful morning. That when you guys reach out and you leave reviews and you leave these DMs, like they actually do mean a lot. And they actually do, like I think people don't realize, like when we have podcasts or YouTube channels or Instagram social accounts, whatever, when we're putting our name and our face out there, the attacks that come at us can be very personal, right? People attack our looks, they attack our commentary, our points of view. And so I often feel like we get berated, whether it's on Reddit or X or DMs or comments or whatever, especially since I've just been a little more free and open with my commentary about everything from Beyonce winning the Grammys to Blake versus Baldoni, Armie Hammer, my support of RFK Jr., who I have known for many years and truly adore. It's nice and refreshing to know that there are people that can at least hear me, watch my show, appreciate my commentary, even if they disagree. I think those are some of the best messages that I've gotten, are people that are like, listen, I like you, listen to your show, don't always agree with you, but still got respect for you. And I think we need more of that. So I just wanted to open up today's episode kind of talking about that it's okay to have people with different viewpoints and to respect people's differences. They don't have to be personal attacks on you personally if they have a different viewpoint of things. But I just wanted to let you guys know that when you write these messages, when you leave the reviews, when you write the comments, or even when I see, because I've been doing a lot of other shows lately, when I, peek in and look at the comments or the reviews that other people have left that have been really positive about me, I'm very grateful for that. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank you and say that I see you and I see all these messages, and I'm very, very, very grateful. Kasha says, "Saw you on Court TV. So happy for you." Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Court TV. And then somebody mentioned, or two people mentioned, one person, Emily. Emily on X wrote, Zack, just saw you on Law and Crime as the expert in the Baldoni Lively case. So cute. You killed it. Congrats. I didn't know that I was on Law and Crime. So if anybody has a clip to that or a link to that, thank you. And then also CM Gonzalez 715 on Instagram said you got a small shout out on the Drinking Bros podcast. Just FYI, when you guys see these things, like screenshot, send me timestamps, send me links. I would love to shout these people out. So I guess thank you to Law and Crime and thank you to Drinking Bros. I subscribed to Drinking Bros this morning now that I found out they gave me a shout out. So if you see them, like screenshot it, send it to me. That way I love getting that stuff too. I saw you on the Royal Rogering documentary about Meghan. Okay, that was another thing. Thank you, Pancho. I didn't even know that they were using my clips for the Royal Rogering documentary, which is like a multi-part documentary on YouTube about Meghan and Harry. So yeah, I didn't know about that until more people sent it to me. I saw you on Candace Owens. She had me on her. What did she say? She had me on. What if you're featured on Law and Order? Of course, there's Laura. There we go. Laura's always going to come in here with the dad jokes. We appreciate being a whole human being and giving others grace to grow and change. Yeah, I tweeted yesterday or posted on X. I'm still getting used to saying. I'm trying to train my brain to say X over Twitter. But I tweeted or I posted. I guess can we still say tweeted even though now it's X? And I posted that people are afraid to have it. I said, people are so afraid to have opinions these days. Say it with your whole chest or don't say anything at all. And I keep seeing that, especially people that are now like newer content creators that are trying to jump in off of the height from the Blake and Baldoni stuff. And a lot of them are kind of just peddling the same old stuff, right? The same old shtick. And I'm just kind of like, yo, if you're going to come in here, at least have a unique point of view. At least be afraid to have a hot take or an opinion that maybe it's a little polarizing, but at least have something to say and say it with your whole chest. People often like to just only say the common thing, the popular thing, go with whatever the narrative of the popular opinion is. And I'm like, have a unique perspective, have your own point of view. And I promise you, you'll do better. You'll be able to hack the Blake and Baldoni case so much more because people will appreciate, even if they don't agree with you, they'll appreciate how honest and refreshing you are. So just do more of that. People need to stop being afraid to have these opinions. Because just because you have an opinion, that doesn't mean you might not be wrong at some point. That doesn't mean you might not have to be like, oops, I misspoke. I misjudged too early. That means that you can still have an opinion and be wrong and then apologize and correct that later on and be like, listen, with exposure to new info or after thinking about it or after talking to so-and-so, my opinion, my perspective has shifted. That's okay. We're human, right? We contradict ourselves all the time. So there you go. But also send me, if Candace Owens featured me, like send me these links, guys. I want to see them. Please, please, please. Okay. I've rambled enough. Let's talk about, what do we want to dive into first? What should we start with? Okay, let's start with Johnny Depp's attorney, Benjamin Chew. So remember, it was Ben, and who was the other? Let me actually, Camille? Johnny Depp attorneys from the trial. Who were they? It was Camille Vasquez. People loved Camille and Ben Chew. Camille was a rock star. I was like, was it Camille or was it Camila? Was it Camila Cabello? Camille was great. She was like the rock star of the Johnny Depp trial. I don't believe she's commented on Blake and Baldoni. However, as I told you yesterday, Elaine from Amber Heard's team spoke out, and hers was kind of dumb. She says that she thinks Justin Baldoni's case is going to be dismissed, which I don't think that it is. I think he has a pretty strong case. And even if he only has a fraction of evidence, that fraction of evidence is a hell of a lot more than I think Blake Lively has and is going to be providing in court, right? But so now we have Ben Chew, who represented Johnny Depp, and he's come out and he's talking about this whole case as well. He was just on Law and Crime, which, again, if you guys find the link, send them to me, please. Send me clips and timestamps and all the things. I want to know Drinking Bros. I want to know Law and Crime. I want to know Candace Owens' show. Let me know. Send it to me. But Ben Chu, he basically called Justin Baldoni's legal team's strategy. He said it's very bold, according to the New York Post. It's very bold and it's very aggressive, which I agree. But then he provides some really interesting insight into some of the information that's already been revealed. And that is, he says that Baldoni's team must have very much vetted all the information in the timeline that they published, because if they didn't vet that info, it would be shocking that they would publish it without verifying or substantiating the claims that they're making with the evidence that they have, right? Like Blake Lively obviously looked like an idiot when her team published the text messages between Baldoni's PR team, only to find out that they were omitting messages, and they tweaked the messages and altered them, taking out the emoji to remove the tone of sarcasm and made it seem more literal. And then Baldoni's team came out and said, hold on, there's a whole lot more to these threads and these text messages. Here's the actual context. Here's what they included. Here's what they cut out of the correspondence. And it made it seem like it was a deliberate narrative that they were trying to sell and peddle in the media. But so Ben Chu definitely thinks that they have their strategy is strong. He didn't weigh in on whether he thinks Baldoni will win or Blake will win. Naturally, as an attorney does, you don't want to weigh in. You kind of want to be, a little in the middle, right? Kind of come at it objectively. I think that's, as an attorney, that was a smart strategy for him to approach it. Whereas with me, I'm like, I believe Baldoni, but I'm not an attorney. But so he says that the most compelling evidence that we've seen so far from Baldoni's team that will likely continue to be the strongest evidence is the audio and video, right? Any footage from the set, which Baldoni has released when Blake claims that he smelled her neck and told her that she smells so good. And then we saw it in its full context, and we see that she opened up that conversation. She's the one that's talking during these scenes when she made it seem like he was the one that was breaking character. And so I think that footage was very telling. Because here's the thing with footage and audio, it's subjective, right? And based off of what her team revealed in their initial complaint, they were not aware that there was any audio from that scene that was being recorded, which Baldoni was like, surprise, Khaleesi, the winter has arrived. Winter is coming, and boom, we actually have audio from that exact scene. We have your audio, we have his audio, because you weren't aware that Justin Baldoni was wearing a mic pack at that moment. So holla, bada boom, bada bang, hey, 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 hey. So yeah, footage and audio, I agree, are the strongest points of evidence that they have. And then when it comes to the text messages, I was curious what he thought about that, because I've heard a lot of people make the argument that text messages don't really mean anything. And if anything, text messages are hearsay and they may not fully be admissible in court as evidence. Ben Chu makes an interesting point in saying that, like, yes and no, like text messages only tell a fraction of the story. And then he also refers to, I guess, one of the witnesses that they had that initially spoke very highly of Amber Heard in the Depp v. Heard trial. That witness originally had a lot of nice things to say about Amber Heard. And then eventually, when that witness's testimony, when their tone changed about Amber Heard, they said that it made it more compelling testimony because it showed that the witness had no bias against Amber Heard until Amber Heard started taking actions against Johnny Depp that they felt were not, honest or true or authentic statements that she was making about Johnny Depp. So it showed that this person very much liked Amber Heard, and then they couldn't in good faith continue to support her after the allegations that were made. So it goes to show that this person has no internalized bias against Amber Heard, because they did like her until they saw her not being entirely honest in her portrayal of their relationship. So I thought that was really interesting. But so that's what he means with the text messages only say part of the story, right? It only gives us a fraction, a piece of the full story, because with the text messages, there's also he claims that, the text messages, if they even happened before the alleged harassment, then they don't really say anything and they don't really mean anything other than they had a good relationship up until the harassment began. Right now, my only pushback to Ben Chu's point, and to be fair, I don't think Ben Chu has studied the case extensively or really read through all of the documents. I think he was only going based off of the information that he has and the questions that were being asked of him. But so when it comes to the text messages, my only pushback to his point about them only telling a fraction of the story, which I do agree with, the messages themselves, I think, based off of the timelines and the timestamps, because Ben Chu is basically saying like, oh, these show that Blake and Baldoni were on good terms, but this was apparently before the alleged harassment. However, flip it on the other side. If you look at the timeline, the text messages go in line and they parallel with the timeline of when she's claiming these allegations, this harassment, this alleged harassment occurred. So when she says, oh, we filmed this scene and you creeped me out by smelling my neck, and then we obviously have the footage showing that that's not exactly how it went down, even if that's how it went down in her memory. The footage tells a very different and objective story. But then we have the text messages from after that scene was filmed where, she's praising Baldoni and sending him really sweet things via text message. So I think that's where the texts do come in handy, because they show that Blake still had a very positive relationship and was still very, unprovoked. She was kind to Baldoni and she was praising Baldoni without any prompting, right? We see her texting him about what a great day they had, what a great shoot they had, et cetera, et cetera. That was after one of the alleged claims of harassment. So I think the fact that this alleged harassment was going on and we have all of this text correspondence with Baldoni and Blake sprinkled in between then shows that maybe she wasn't as uncomfortable as she's claiming to be, because again, the timestamps from the text messages with her timeline of these allegations, they don't necessarily add up, right? Why are you texting him about your yummy banter when you feel like he's already harassed you at that point? Why are you saying that your love language is ball busting, never with teeth? Why would you be saying that if he's somebody that's made you very uncomfortable, right? So again, the timestamps from the text messages in alignment with her timeline of when this alleged harassment was going on, not to mention the 17-point/30-point list of items that she took issue with, which was presented, at least the 17-point list was presented on January 4th, 2024, which per the production timeline that Baldoni published, there were no sex, no intimate scenes that had been filmed at that point. So when her list says no more of this, no more, there being an open set when we're filming these intimate scenes, yada, yada, yada. And they're just like, well, we hadn't filmed any of those intimate scenes yet. Those were all scheduled for phase 2 of production, which happened after the strike. So that kind of invalidates some of the points that were made in her list when the production schedule shows when these scenes were scheduled to be filmed, when they were actually filmed, and then obviously there's all the raw footage, right? I would imagine the next footage drop is probably going to be from the birthing scene where she gives birth to the baby and she claims she only had a small fabric above her genitalia and she kept asking for more coverage and asking for more coverage. And then we later find out that she was actually wearing a pair of black briefs and a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Very different. So I'm curious as to what that raw footage will show us, because they'll show us what she was wearing and they'll show us if she expressed discomfort as she claimed, if she repeatedly was asking them to bring her additional clothing so that she can wear during the scene. And she made it seem like they just had this teeny tiny little piece of fabric just covering the cooch. And outside of that, there were no other, there was nothing else covering her. And all these people were just walking around on set. And then Baldoni's team was like, well, actually, this was a closed set. Here's the production schedule. Here's the call sheet for the day. It says that this scene specifically was a closed set. So for her to say that it wasn't a closed set is not true. And again, I would imagine the raw footage you'll see when they move the camera and they pan to show how many people may have been in the room. I'm pretty sure you'll hear other people talking if it was busy, if it was chaotic, because she claims that scene specifically was very chaotic and there were a lot of people. The cameras are there. They're filming everything. So all the raw footage will be there. If it was as chaotic as she says that it was, or as she claims, we'll see that in the raw footage. We'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. So I agree with Ben Chu. I think the most compelling pieces of evidence are footage and audio, because you're seeing that with your own eyes. And even though Blake Lively's team came out and said, oh, well, this footage tells the exact story of what we claimed, like that level of gaslighting, I don't think is going to work, because we've seen them and we're starting to believe our own eyes and ears again. We're in a climate in our country where our eyes and ears are showing us things and we're finally starting to believe ourselves rather than what we're told to believe. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. But I'm glad Ben Chu came and spoke out about this. ACG333 said, "You're a breath of fresh air, Zach. Thank you for using your common sense and aren't being afraid to be real. You're so very articulate. entertaining, non-biased, funny, clever, and sharp. Forget the Cool Kids Club. Yeah, I've never been part of the Cool Kids Club. I've always marched to the beat of my own drum. But thank you, ACG333. I mean, that feels like a lot of microaggressions when you say that I'm articulate and sharp. What are you trying to say, that gay people can't be articulate and sharp? Are you trying to say that Hispanic people cannot have common sense? What are these microaggressions? I'm kidding. You know, I love all the microaggressions because usually they're just masked by compliments. And I like compliments. I love when you stroke my ego. Okay, so we talked about Ben Chu. Should we pivot on over to some Bravo news? Ooh, and the Armie Hammer stuff. A lot of people had a lot of questions or a lot of like pushback because I published a video yesterday on Instagram and TikTok about Armie Hammer and how Blake Lively supposedly got Armie Hammer fired from the set of Gossip Girl. And then a lot of people were like, well, wait, wasn't Armie Hammer a cannibal? Didn't he eat people? Like, wasn't he convicted of doing all these terrible things to all these women? Well, we're going to get into all of that because there was an investigation, there was a documentary, there was a whole bunch of stuff. And I think people forget how that all ended. And it's a great example of how, you know, people have hijacked the Me Too movement to bring forth allegations, and how we got into this era with Amber Heard and now with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, and how the media is complicit in pushing these narratives. We'll get into that in just a sec. But before we do, I did want to give some love, a shout out and some love to my pals at Factor. You know, I love me some Factor. I just got my Factor box, and look at, with my Factor box, I got my Factor juices, which are delicious. Yesterday, as you can see, I actually drink Factor from my Factor meals, because as you can see, this one was from yesterday. I drank it. It's an empty bottle. This was my cold pressed pineapple turmeric basil. This was delicious, and if I wasn't doing 75 hard, I would have loved this with some tequila. But but that's okay. I'm enjoying the mocktail lifestyle. But so here we go. I have this one. This is the apple kale wheatgrass cold pressed juice from Factor. Mm, 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 mm. Delicioso. So, if you guys are ready to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor has chef made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat in 2 minutes, so that you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. They have a number of different options, 40 different options across 8 different dietary preferences on the menu each week. It's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. You can choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. I've done the Keto plan. I'm currently on the Protein Plus plan because I'm trying to bulk up. I'm trying to be like, oh, let me be a man. Yeah. But if you want to reach your goals with ingredients that you can trust and the convenience that you just can't beat, give Factor meals a try. Like I said, this is delicious. These cold pressed juices, this one right here, excellent source of vitamins A, C, and K. It's a balance of sweet apple, hardy kale, and wheatgrass to make for a delicious dose of greens. You can fuel up and feel good fast with Factor. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/nofilter50off. The link and the code are down below in the description. You can use code NOFILTER50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code NOFILTER50off at factormeals.com/nofilter50off. And you'll get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. So go stock up now, hit those health goals. Factormeals.com/nofilter50 off. Go right now. Okay, let's do a little Bravo news. I want to talk about Real Houses of Beverly Hills and I guess the former stars of Vanderpump Rules. Because there's a lot coming. Nicole says she just got her Zack pack hoodie and it's so trust me, the hoodies, I love a good hoodie. So when it comes to the merch, Zack pack hoodies, they're great. I love my hoodies. You can use the link in the description below to get your merch, get your hoodies, get your tank tops, get your tees, get your hats, and send me pictures, guys. Post to your stories and tag me so that I can repost them, give you guys shout outs and tag you. Green Girl says, how old are you? But young ones are very aware and unique these days. I'm 31. I'll be 32 in June. Jupiter Clark says Zack is so articulate. By some way, Canadians still see as great neighbors like me. Thank you. Did you hear about Marcus Jordan's DUI? Yes, I believe it was the pasta that he was imbibing in. Marcus Jordan, son of Michael Jordan, formerly dating Real Housewives of Miami star Larsa Pippen. Yes. Okay, let's talk about Beverly Hills though. Beverly Hills, that's where I want to be. Gimme, 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 gimme. Living in Beverly Hills. So we got a new episode of The Real Houses of Beverly Hills. We had Dorit that's kind of like really popping off on PK, talking about how PK one is trying to divorce her before the 10 years are up, which I don't know. So in California, we have community property, which after 10 years, everything is divided 50-50 because after 10 years of marriage, you're considered a long-term marriage. So everything just gets split down the middle, 50-50, right? So when it comes to Dorit and PK, they got married on what's the exact date? March 7th, 2015. So we are exactly a month away from their 10-year anniversary. What does that mean? Well, Janelle, it means that if PK divorces Dorit before the 10 years, he has 1 month to file for divorce. And if he does it and he pulls the trigger on that, which after this episode, I think he just might, because you have to remember, this was filmed months ago. So when Dorit's speculating that he may be trying to get out before the 10 years, that's pure speculation. There was about 6 months. So this was filmed about 5 months ago. And like I said, the 10-year mark will be on March 7th, 2025, because they got married on March 7th, 2015. We're literally exactly a month away. It's the final countdown. And after that episode airing, I don't know how confident I'm going to be in him sticking it out another month, because she claims that he wrote her this really nasty email where he was claiming that she's going to have to start taking over all of the finances. She's going to have to start paying for the mortgage, which, I mean, to be fair, to some extent does make sense because he's no longer living there. They've been separated for some time. That it does appear like he's like, listen, we're not together anymore. I shouldn't be financially responsible for you anymore, which, to be fair, if like you really are done with her and you don't want to be paying for her expenses, not to mention they're not just her expenses, they're expenses for the kids, I would imagine then you should file for divorce, you know? Why stay married to her and keep dragging her along? But Dorit in this episode admits that she believes that PK doesn't want to be married to her anymore. And then she even says that he's not a good father. Not great comments to be putting on national television. I get it. She's trying to just be herself and be fully, authentically, herself on the show, which I think people are finding refreshing and really appreciating and enjoying. However, you have to be mindful of the kids, right? And she says, like, she's been so mindful of the kids in the sense that she's been trying to praise them and let them know that their dad loves them and cares about them and has been trying to call them even though he is away traveling for weeks at a time. And she says that that's not true, that sometimes he'll go days to weeks without reaching out or checking in on the kids. How true that is, I don't know. But she says she doesn't recognize the man that PK is today. And then we even have Kathy Hilton, who threw a little shade because she's like, how old is PJ? And they're all like, PK. His name is PK. She's like, PK, PJ, whatever. And so Dorit's like, he's 56. And then Kathy's like, oh, wow. I thought he was 56 when I met him. And I've known him for a very long time. And Bose, who's the best new addition to Beverly Hills in a while, she comes out and she's like, that was some shade. She's like, Kathy, that was some shade. She was like, that was the smoothest shade I ever heard, but that was shady. And then Erica's like, I know, Kathy's shady. And we've had these moments, right? Remember when she was like dragging Mauricio? She was like, yeah, he's always at the gym posting all the selfies of him at the gym. Oh. And she was like being sarcastic about Mauricio. And now we have her dragging PK. It was funny. But was it on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or where was it where somebody asked her about, it may have been an interview or it may have been on the show, but I saw it recently where people were asking Kathy for her marriage advice. And what it takes to stay married for as long as she has, and she was just like, "Oh, well, the reason I've been married for this long is because we actually like each other and we enjoy each other's company and we enjoy spending time together." Yada yada yada. Good for her. Kenzie said, Was the last episode worth watching? I've been bored with Beverly Hills." I will say Beverly Hills has been a bit boring this season. It's a bit of a snooze. It's a bit of a sleeper. If you ask me, I would have married Kate and Ashley. So yeah, it hasn't been the most exciting. I would say right now we see Kyle and Garcelle. They go to Augusta, Georgia to see Sutton and her mama. And Sutton and her mama, they're I don't know. They're a little interesting. But yeah. That's where we are. Yeah, it's a boring episode. I didn't think it was all that good. Wow, a lot of people are saying that the last episode was so good. I didn't. Was it so good? With Sutton going to, I wasn't interested in Sutton's trip to Georgia. And Garcelle trying to have a sit down with Sutton's mom about being proud of her. And I don't know. Maybe I was the one that just wasn't that jazzed by it. I did like the Kathy dinner, but it also just kind of felt random, right? Like Kathy Hilton, Kyle going to Georgia with Sutton and Garcelle. Like, I just don't believe Kyle and Garcelle are close friends, nor do I feel like Kyle and Sutton are even all that close, considering they've had so many ups and downs over the last couple of years. And then to have Kathy Hilton inviting these ladies over, not inviting Kyle because Kyle's not there. Kyle's in Georgia. So they have what feels like a very produced fake scene of Kathy inviting the ladies over to film at her house for lunch or dinner or whatever they had with Bose, who Kathy doesn't know and has barely met for 2 seconds, Erica, who she's had a contentious relationship with in the past, and Dorit, which also, like, I just don't buy that Kathy is genuinely close to any of these 3 women to have them over for dinner. Like, it was just kind of like, huh? Say what? So, yeah, I was a little perplexed by it. Kid says, "I don't think Sutton wanted Erica in Augusta because she didn't want her to see she didn't want to see Erica getting along with Reba." I actually think Sutton's mom would have really liked Erica, to be honest with you. Sydney says, "Beverly Hills wasn't amazing. We're talking about bailing out." Oh, bailing out loud. Yeah, bailing out loud. Bailing out loud. Yes, that's the new TLC show. I haven't watched it yet. But so if everybody thinks that Baleen Out Loud on TLC was good, then that's something we can definitely recommend. Lynn said, "Wow, Sutton was brave putting her mother on the show. What a piece of work. Who disparages her grandson? Nobody." Yeah, I thought it was a little strange, right? Like, not only do we have Dorit dragging her husband on the show, but then we have Sutton. And Sutton, I feel like, knows her mother. And Sutton agreed to film with her mother. So even though Sutton's like, "I'm going to take you to Georgia so that you can, get to see my Southern roots." And then we have her mama. And her mama has got those real strong Southern values. I think she's like very clearly trying to blast her mom because she even says like, my mom's not proud of me, and she's not happy of this store that I built for myself. Which also, to be fair, like, I would think her mom would be more proud of her if she like built a business on her own from scratch. But like, let's be honest, Sutton gets $300,000 in alimony or spousal support per month from her ex-husband. That, like, Sutton didn't earn any of her money, nor is she really earning a ton of money from her Sutton Concept store. Sutton Concept is really just a concept of a vanity project, right? Sutton is so wealthy. Yeah, she is. Not only does she come from money, but then she married into money and divorced with a lot of it. So when she's like, "My mom's not proud of the business that I built," I'm like, okay, well, it's a little different, Mama knows how you got your money. Mama knows your store is a vanity project. That, like, not that her mom's not harsh, right? Her mom definitely seems very tough. And living under her roof, I would imagine, was not the most fun growing up. But for her to, like, go on television and drag her mom and put her mom out there knowing that the audience is probably not gonna like her, ooh, oh, no, it kinda shows you who Sutton is if she's willing to just throw her mama under the bus like that. Mama cares more about the ex-husband than her daughter. Listen, I'm not trying to defend mama. Mama was all sorts of rough. I'm just saying. Sutton knew mama was rough, and Sutton agreed to put her mama out there like that. Just like, ooh. Jupiter says, LOL, Zach. Lori says it's definitely not going to be dismissed, but I think Blake will end up settling before going to trial now that Taylor Swift is involved. Thanks to Khaleesi, they will have to settle. Well, let's remember Khaleesi has a number of dragons, right? A number of pets. She has Taylor Swift. She has Ryan Reynolds, both of which have been dragged into this. We also have Bradley Cooper, who's been dragged into this. Taylor Swift's brother dragged into this. So there are a number of people, high profile people, or people that would probably want to protect their privacy that have now been dragged into this. I don't think Blake ever expected it to blow up to this level. I think Blake thought that Baldoni was going to fold. He was going to fold like a fold up chair. And he was just like, nah, lady, I'm not a fold up chair. I'm a full on couch, not a love seat, a full on sectional plus the whole couch. So, he's not going to lie down and let her get him. We'll see. Okay, moving on from Beverly Hills, let's talk about Vanderpump Rules. Ariana Madix and Katie Maloney are apparently at odds and they're not getting along. Ooh, this ain't too good, right? Ho, ho, ho. So there's this new Reddit post from Vanderpump Holics, on Reddit. And this was posted by this user with the username Hotlington Berry 6964. Hotlington Berry 6964 published a day ago and says, okay, here's the tea I unfortunately can't prove. Well, why are you telling us tea you can't prove? Katie and Ariana are not doing well working together, and it's bubbling up as she has the potential to get bad. When Ariana was busy last year with her million commitments, Katie started feeling resentful. I think she even acknowledged it. However, I guess be careful what you wish for, because now that Ariana is more focused on something about her and Katie have been butting heads because they have different versions, working styles, etc. Apparently, they operate like night and day. Initially, I think they thought their differences would complement each other, but it's not. It's just causing resentment. Maybe it would be different if Ariana was involved from the beginning, but Katie is like, where have you been? We've been operating just fine without you, and now you have all these thoughts and input. They have a bunch of mutual friends. So between that and the business, they're trying to get past it, but it's becoming awkward for their common friends. They used to bring up something about her as conversation, but now mutual friends try to avoid bringing it up because they don't want to be put in the middle. But they're scared that Katie and Ariana's issues will make people choose sides, comparing it to a breakup. In one venting session, Katie made a comment, something like, I see now why we've never been close before. Wow, that's pretty strong, Katie. Katie is also very aware of public perception and is scared to say anything that would seem critical, even constructive criticism, because she sees herself as being less important. My words, can't think of the word I mean. Being less important than Ariana, and that so many people are on the Ariana train and she's the new it girl right now, that people will choose Ariana over her. I'm guessing that's a marriage with someone that didn't choose her is playing into feeling that way, that nobody will ever choose her if given the option of her and someone so beloved. Thank you, Hot Lingonberry 6964 for spilling that tea. But so it seems that Katie and Ariana are on the fritz. They're not in the best place right now. I'm not surprised, right? Like, whether this is real or not real, it's at least plausible. And I definitely believe that they're likely at odds right now because of the fact that, I mean, running a business is tough. And when you have one partner that's not the most active because they're busy with other commitments and suddenly they want to come in, it's like, whoo. Wow, wow, wow. Zach, you call people who are defending Blake Lively stupid. Well, they are stupid. That's just my opinion. I'm not stating that they're stupid as fact. I'm just saying they lack critical thinking skills. Why is that relevant? Know me? But yeah, Laura says their boundaries are not aligned. Yeah, Katie and Ariana, definitely boundaries not aligned. Ariana just posted on Instagram the other day and included photos and videos of Katie. Well, yeah, even if they are at odds, Beth, they're not going to be not posting with each other. Like, they have the business to salvage, which was Lala Kent's point at the reunion when Lala's like, I understand why Katie would not publicly say anything negative about Ariana, even though she vents about her behind the scenes, because obviously she has a vested interest in trying to protect something about her. So I think when it comes to something about her, they're going to do everything they can to try to keep it afloat. But I can see how they definitely may have some creative differences and maybe not be in full alignment. Also, you have to remember, Katie and Ariana haven't really run any businesses before, right? Like, what has Katie done aside from knitting and doing Vanderpump Rules? And even Ariana, like I know she's had her cocktail book and she's had her cocktail line, but like you have to realize any deals that they've had, they have managers and agents and people and lawyers that are brokering and negotiating all this stuff and just giving them the deliverables of what they're supposed to do. So we'll see how this plays out, but I'm not surprised. And I actually think that there probably is some legitimacy to these rumors. I think that they may not be in full alignment. And that comes with the territory of working with a business partner, right? When you share a business with somebody else, you're not always going to see things the same way. You're not always going to see eye to eye. So we'll see. Lizzie says, I give the sandwich shop a year. I'm pretty sure the hype has died down, right? I don't really hear or see many people talking about something about her. So we'll see. I know they filmed something there. It was some sort of project. It wasn't for Vanderpump Rules, but they had a filming notice and they had a camera crew there. There was some media uh, coverage that they were giving something about her. So we'll see what happens there. Laura says, I'm surprised it's still open. I'm not. They have enough funds that they brought in within their first like 6 months that I think will keep them afloat for a while. We'll just have to see how it goes. But if they stay open for another year, then listen, Chef Penny's trial against them is gonna or lawsuit against them is gonna really bring more to the forefront. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. What should we move? Oh, let's talk Armie Hammer. I'm very curious. I just want to read the room and poll the audience. What do you think? Do you like Armie Hammer? Do you dislike Armie Hammer? Are you indifferent to Armie Hammer? Like, I'm just curious um what your like narrative or headspace around Armie Hammer actually is. Because I've seen a lot of people now that I shared this story about Armie Hammer playing Blake Lively's love interest, and then allegedly he referred to her as a bitch. And since he called her a bitch, she had him fired from Gossip Girl, and he only lasted, I think, like 4 episodes. And so a lot of people are like, this isn't a good example. Armie Hammer's terrible. Oh my God, he assaulted all those women and he did all those things and he's a cannibal. And I think people think he actually like eats people's limbs, right? When he says, I'm going to eat you out, that doesn't mean he wants to nibble on your heart, right? Maybe he found a different way to your heart, but those nibbles have nothing to do with being a cannibal. So, okay, a lot of people are saying indifferent, don't know much about him, heard that he has freaky taste, but to each their own. I was indifferent to him until I watched his podcast recently, and I really, really like him. Yes, he has a new podcast called Hammer Time. Hammer Time. I'm trying to, okay, maybe you guys can help me. I'm trying to land a one-on-one sit-down interview with Armie Hammer. I've been trying to make this happen since he launched his podcast because I was like, I want to sit him down and I want to get into all of the nitty-gritty of it all, right? I want to get into all the limbs, all the body parts, all the phalanges. The same way I was able to get Erica to sit down with me for a full hour and give me the full Girardi marriage scoop, legal scoop. I want Armie Hammer to sit down and give me the full what happened, what were these DMs, what is your freak level on a scale of 1 to 10? Is it really a 14? Like, I want to ask all, are you going to let him nibble on you? If he wants to take a nibble of my rib, I would be like, hell yeah. Can Erica hook you up with an interview? With with Armie Hammer? No, she actually doesn't know him. If you watched my interview with Erica, you'll know that because we did address it, and there were the rumors about her sleeping with Armie Hammer. Which, to be fair, like, talk about an OnlyFans, I would pay a premium subscription for Armie Hammer and Erica Jane. Hell yes. Make those rumors reality, you know? But I've been trying to secure, and I texted my manager yesterday, and I was like, we need to secure the Armie Hammer interview now that Armie Hammer's re-entered the chat with his relation to Blake Lively, right? So when it comes to Armie Hammer, because a lot of people really do think that he's a cannibal and he abused all these women. So I was like, well, what is the latest update? What went down with Armie Hammer? Because there were the allegations against him and all these women were coming out and they're like, oh my God, he's, he does RAPIST, and he, is just a bad, bad man, and was, really terrible to women, and he's a cannibal, and he likes to eat people. And so he was canceled back in 2021. And then ultimately the investigation was resolved in 2023. But now here we are, 2025, and people still believe that he's a cannibal. So let's get into it. Well, now I need to dive into the Armie Hammer story. So yes, so those were the allegations. They came out in 2021, and it was specifically spearheaded by this one woman who remained mostly anonymous, but went by the name Effie. And so Effie, who I believe has continued to speak out, but I don't believe Effie's her real name, or we don't have her last name. And all of the news agencies are like, we don't want to out her and release her full identity, because if we do that, like, we want to be mindful of victims, yada, yada, yada. So this all blew up and went down back in 2021. Armie Hammer, he's a cannibal. He's eating people. He's eating the ladies. He's eating the dogs. He's eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Maybe when Trump said that people were eating the cat, he just meant they were going down on the cookie, you know? What if that's what the allegations are? Maybe that was just, we were getting freaky in Springfield, Ohio, and then when, people were reporting that the Haitians were eating the cats, maybe they just meant Haitians gave good head, I don't know. But so anyway, it was announced in June 2023 from the Los Angeles DA's office that they didn't have any evidence to charge Armie Hammer with any crime. And so even though it was after this woman named Effie, she came out, she claimed that he assaulted her back in 2021. I believe they started talking in 2020, or hold on, I have it here somewhere. They started talking, they met on Facebook. Effie and Armie met on Facebook in 2016 when she claims she was 20 at the time. So this was 4 or 5 years later, when everything kind of blew up. So LADA's office said that they did an extremely thorough investigation and found no evidence to charge Armie Hammer with the crime. They're unable to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. So outside of Effie's allegations, or what she was claiming, they didn't have any actual evidence or anything to hold against Armie Hammer. Also notable, or worth noting, that Effie at the time was represented by female feminist powerhouse Gloria Allred. She was real big in the 2000s. We haven't heard much from Gloria Allred recently. But so anyway, Gloria probably thought this was her next big case to take down Armie Hammer. So Effie was repped by Gloria Allred, who apparently dropped her as a client. So when Gloria Allred drops you and the investigation comes up clean, or there's nothing to hold against you, to me, those are some red flags against the allegations, right? And so as we know, when people make these allegations, this was a criminal investigation. Nothing came forth. There was no civil lawsuit. That never came forth. Gloria Allred didn't pursue that. The DA's office didn't pursue any criminal charges. This Effie woman continues to maintain her story, I believe, has gone on Instagram and continue to pick details apart and claim that this really did happen to her. So I don't want to negate her experience. I'm just saying there was no evidence that proved that any of this happened. I believe some of the other allegations against Armie and the messages that people were sharing, there was some dispute over the legitimacy of some of the messages and whether some of them may have been doctored. To me, the biggest red flag in all of these messages when they first came out, I didn't cover the case closely at that time, but the biggest red flag that raised to me when I saw these, similar to like the New York Times article with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, you have to, just kind of look at it objectively, put all the pieces on the table, and then say, okay, what does all this information tell me, without immediately jumping to whatever narrative I'm supposed to believe, right? So when you see all the pieces objectively on the table, the biggest red flag to me was the messages that were being leaked and shared were only messages from, like, they were very specific, curated pieces of the correspondence that made Armie Hammer look like his freak number was way up there, right? Definitely kinky, definitely into some freaky shit, but people talk a big game. I mean, especially if you're in the gay community and you're on Grindr or whatever, like gay men especially can be real nasty, but they can talk a big game, and then they're usually a little shy and like, oh, and they're not so big and bad. Like, I've had a number of guys that have DM'd me and they were all big and bad when we were talking. And the next thing you know, when we actually meet up in person, they're like shy and meek and they don't really, hold up to it. So I think text message, DM correspondence, WhatsApp correspondence can be a fraction of the story, right? But what I noticed about those messages at the time is they were very much one-sided, and they were very specific to pieces of those conversations without getting the full context or the full message themselves. And as we've seen with Blake Lively's, you know, article that she allegedly worked on with the New York Times to take down Justin Baldoni, in that we saw cherry-picked text messages that looked bad out of context, right? So my analysis of this Armie Hammer case was that right off of the Me Too movement, right? This is 2020, 2021, like Me Too, Time's Up. That was all still very popular. At that time, I don't believe Amber Heard had been fully taken down yet. So we didn't, think that it was possible for women to come forth with false allegations. And we also had just come off Harvey Weinstein. The Epstein stuff was starting to get dug up at the time. So I think there was a lot of, there was just the waters were not fully clean at that point. They were still very muddy. And so I'm not saying that these women lied. I'm not saying that there wasn't any truth to them, nor am I denying that the Armie Hammer, his family definitely has a unique history. I think he's a privileged pretty boy that always got his way, probably has a big freak number, probably likes a little pinky up the booty. And, he's freak, right? Not like in a mean sense, but like he's kinky boots. And probably liked some naughty stuff, found some ladies that were willing to throw themselves at him over the naughty stuff because he's a tall, handsome man that happens to be famous and rich. And I think that they had, interactions, they had relations together. I think he's always maintained that even though the relations may have been a little taboo, that they were always consensual. And from some of the messages, because I think his attorney also revealed messages from this Effie woman that showed that she was willing to engage in some of this rougher, kinkier sort of interactions, right? Like she was very much complicit in agreement. And that's what Armie Hammer always said from the beginning. Like, yeah, he's very naughty in the bedroom. His freak number is way up there, but this was all something that they all discussed. Any of his encounters with other women were always consensual. They were always of age. And that, yeah, they discussed having kinky sex. And that's what happened, right? They discussed being freaky and having a high freak number. And they were just like, listen, we discussed it. We were into it. We did it. So, yeah, I think that, and he's addressed it, right? He has his podcast now. He had his mom on, and in one of the first episodes, he addresses this all head on about how he was canceled, about how he was an idiot for putting these things in writing. He shouldn't have put these things in writing. But I don't believe he's an actual cannibal. I just think he gets off on, I don't know, that type of weird shit. Which, not to kink shame anybody, but it is kind of weird shit. So, yeah. I see a lot of people in the live chat also talking about Madison LaCroix. Yes, she just announced she's pregnant. She's having a baby. So that's where we're at. Nicole, sorry, I haven't been ignoring you, Nicole. Nicole says, dropped a super chat and said, my third grader loves my sweatshirt too. Oh, your Zack Pack sweatshirt. They said that it's so soft and they want to be in the Zack Pack too. Yes, let's get it. Everyone's welcome in the Zack Pack. And then Nicole also dropped a bigger super chat. Uh-oh. Nicole says, sorry about all the super chats, but I have a question. Listen, I'm never going to make you apologize for a super chat. She says, I have a question. I feel so bad for him after it appears to be he's been falsely accused as a victim of SA. It really pisses me off. Do you think he will recover completely and Blake is done like Amber Heard? I believe you're referring to Baldoni. Well, I mean, I think Armie Hammer is a really great example of what happens when these allegations are kind of thrown at you and you're not really given an opportunity to fight back. But that's why I think Johnny Depp's attorney, Ben Chu, is coming out here and being like, listen, this is a really bold and aggressive strategy, but it's like you have to be bold and aggressive if the allegations against you are false. Like that's just the game that needs to be played right now. I think people thought before if you went on the aggressive, then it must mean that you're guilty of something, right? Like the other person that came into the live chat the other day and was like, well, if he has nothing to hide, why is he so scared of her? I'm like, he's scared of her because we've seen people's careers be completely blown up. That's not to say that Armie Hammer did or didn't do what he was accused of doing, even though there have been no charges and then the investigation didn't find any evidence to support any of the allegations against him. But that damage was already done. He had to move to the Cayman Islands. He had to leave. His marriage blew up. I mean, naturally, your marriage is going to blow up when you cheat and you're DMing girls nasty things. But like, you have to fight back hard the same way Johnny Depp did, in the same way Justin Baldoni is doing, because if the allegations are false and you have nothing to hide, you have to go 10 toes down and you have to at least come out swinging. But I think people are afraid to do that before. And it was the advice against the people that were being accused in the past to not come so hard and to not be so aggressive, because if you were, then it would look like you're badgering the witness or you're badgering the victim, right? Which is kind of what Blake Lively's team is trying to do when their statements are saying, oh, well, Jed Wallace, the guy who was accused of that we accused of astroturfing in the New York Times article, he's only suing us now because he is retaliating because of the alleged assault from Justin Baldoni. And it's like, well, what is Jed Wallace, who literally is his own independent dude with his own independent company, what is he and this alleged unproven astroturfing that you're theorizing that he did, what does that have to do with Baldoni allegedly retaliating against Blake Lively? Like that doesn't make sense. So, and then you see like anytime Baldoni released any footage or text messages, they were just like, oh, he's just trying to blame the victim. So that's the narrative that's often worked in the past. And nobody's been able to refute that, right? Because that was kind of the thing. You don't go after the victim. Believe all victims, believe all women. How dare a woman ever lie? That's why victims don't come forth, is because people believe that they're going to be liars. But then you have people that are actually liars that have a big platform that come out and unfortunately fuck it up for everybody. And now we're in the era, 2025 is the year of FAFO, fuck around and find out. We're in that era. Blake Lively fucked around and now she's finding out, you know? And so same thing with like Armie Hammer, because when he was essentially exonerated and cleared of the investigation, his attorney released the messages from Effie that were showing that Effie was very much wanting to engage in this type of kinky interaction with Armie Hammer, right? Very much in agreement with it. The text messages, I mean, a text message is pretty clear, right? If somebody's saying, yes, I want to do this, that's a pretty clear statement of giving consent that you want to participate in this type of behavior, especially when you continue to interact with this person, you continue to have a sexual relationship with this person. Yeah, there are going to be some questions. But do you think the media at that time back in 2023 was reporting on the text messages that were released on Effie? No, but everybody was publishing the messages that were allegedly from Armie Hammer. So that kind of gives you an idea of like the press wasn't interested in telling the other side of the story. The press wasn't interested in, they're just like, oh, he said that he was cleared. DA didn't file any charges. It was a 24-hour news cycle and then it moved on, you know? So Roseanne says, any thoughts on possible Lindsay Hubbard breakup? But just, yes, I'll touch on that in a sec. But just to kind of put a bow on Baldoni and on Armie Hammer, that's kind of the update on Armie Hammer. He was cleared. Press, I don't think, was covering the coverage very fairly. I mean, people reference these like low budget documentaries because there was, I think, House of Hammer that came out at that time. But like it was the same thing with The Housewife and the Hustler on Hulu, or I heard there was a Baldoni and Blake documentary that a lot of people that actually followed the case were like, it was kind of dumb. It didn't really give us any information. A lot of these documentaries or docuseries into these scandals are really superficial. They're super surface. They're not very deep. They don't give you details. They don't really give you context. Even Housewife and the Hustler. Look at Housewife and the Hustler Part 2. Most of that was built off of footage from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And it's like, why are we focusing on all of this footage on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills on Erica Jane when the real criminals were Tom Girardi and Christopher Camone? How many times did you actually hear Christopher Camone's name come up in Housewife and the Hustler Part 2? Not very many. Christopher Camone was the CFO at Girardi Keese. He was the one that was cooking the books with Tom Girardi. He has since pled guilty and is going to be serving his time. Why was he not the center of the documentary from Hulu's Housewife and the Hustler? Oh, because that wasn't going to be as interesting to people. The interesting thing would be to lean into Erica Jane because she's the famous one. She's the one that's on television right now. Let's pull all these clips from when she's at one of the worst times in her life and continue to circulate all of this Bravo footage of Erica trying to say that she doesn't care about the victims. Who cares if Erica does or doesn't care about the victims at this point? If we're talking about the facts and the court of law, then the men that committed these crimes, like Tom Girardi and Christopher Camone, should have been the people that were at the center of that scandal and featured in this documentary, right? Why didn't we talk about all of the multiple properties that Christopher Camone had owned as the Girardi Keese CFO? He had multiple properties. Then when shit started to hit the fan, he started selling off all of his properties and planned on moving to the Bahamas. He was caught in the process of doing that. And he was saying, oh no, I wasn't trying to liquidate my assets. I wasn't trying to get rid of everything and just escape to the Bahamas. I wasn't trying to get away scot-free. And then it's like, well, why didn't we talk about that on Hulu? So that's why these documentaries also media narratives, right? You can't buy any of this. You can't believe any of it. Like you have to, it's hard because it's like there is information. Even when I try to look up the Effie text messages that Armie Hammer's public or attorney released, those were hard to find. So it just goes to show, like, have a critical thinking brain. I mean, even not to get political, because I know some of you get mad when I do that, but I'm gonna talk about it because it's relevant and related to this case right now. The what do you call it? Let me pull it up right now. Scandal of the century. Turns out our very own government has been funding hit piece journalism against its citizens. And then, because obviously, I've been outspoken about RFK Jr., and a lot of people have had a lot of different ideas and feelings about RFK Jr. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Why do you think these things? Why do you think Armie Hammer is a cannibal? Why do you believe that Justin Baldoni actually harassed Blake Lively? Why do you think these things that you believe, right? And usually people are like, well, because that's what it was. That's what it is. He did it. He ate her heart out, you know? He ate her coochie, so he must be into eating women, right? But it's like, oh, why do you believe what you believe about RFK? But now that all of this information has been coming out from our government about USAID, which USAID stands for the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is an independent agency of the United States government that is primarily responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance. And obviously, we've gotten some of the numbers on where the funding was going within our government, but and I know a lot of people are kind of torn about that, but in this new expose, and as we're finding this information out, it was discovered that Politico, Reuters, and other news outlets were found to accept federal funds under active social engineering defense and large-scale social deception, which they were using to publish these hit pieces on RFK Jr. So when people are like, he's a conspiracy theorist, he's a liar, he's all this, I'm like, but why do you think that? And then we find out that the government was funding these hit pieces against, actually, let me see if I can put this up on the screen. It's on American Values, which is a PAC, americanvalues.pac, PAC, on Instagram. They posted all this, and then they show all the receipts and the info about Politico putting these articles together. And Politico in particular received over $8 million from USAID, resulting in constant negative headlines and a barrage of anti-RFK propaganda. And then they show all the articles that were written against RFK in Politico, the 7 weirdest moments from RFK's lost shot campaign. Quack or distributor, Trump's pick RFK Jr. gets mixed reviews. RFK's ultimate vanity project, how a deep sense of persecution and a taste of conspiracy have coalesced into a campaign about censorship that matters to almost no Democratic voters. Watching RFK Jr. in the Senate was personally painful. I worked for his father. He never would have been so slippery. And so you see all of this. You see, and they release all the info. It's wild that our government bribed the media to eliminate RFK Jr. from the presidential race, and it makes you wonder why. So when you ask yourself, why do I not like this person? Why do I believe these things about Armie Hammer or Justin Baldoni? I mean, or even Blake Lively, right? Like, you really have to think, like, why was there a smear campaign against Blake Lively? Why do I think that she's difficult to work with? And then when you dig into these things and you see, oh, she's had a history with Leighton Meester. She's had a history with Anna Kendrick. She's had a history of, another alleged beef with America Ferrera. And then you see that, she allegedly got Armie Hammer fired, and people have, not spoken too well of their experiences working with Blake Lively. You start to factor those things into it, and it's like, well, you have all of this information about one person, and then you have these headlines about another person. Because if you look at the media, they're very much covering Blake Lively in a favorable way in comparison to Justin Baldoni. But when you actually get into the nitty gritty of it all, and you read the documents, you look at the receipts, you look at the text messages, you try to read the subcontext within the messages, it's a completely different story, right? than what the news is trying to tell you. And it's unfortunate, but then you see how the New York Times allegedly colluded with Blake Lively to put out what they believed to be a hit piece. And then you see kind of how the tactics that they went to. I saw Don Lemon surprisingly came out and was speaking out against the New York Times. He did an interview and I was like, wow, Don Lemon is coming out against the New York Times to say that what they did was shady. He didn't necessarily defend Baldoni or, go against Blake Lively, but he explained how the media, there's such a high bar that you have to prove that they were deceptive in their reporting in order to be able to bring forth a lawsuit against them. And that's why it's so hard to sue the press. And so because of this near impossible bar that you have to reach in order to be able to sue them for lying about you, most people just don't do that. And then they just let the press do whatever they want and put out whatever agenda and narrative they want to put out there, It's just interesting. So it makes you think, right? Makes you think, critical thinking. But yes, the Lindsay Hubbard rumors. There are rumors that Lindsay Hubbard is no longer with her baby daddy, her boyfriend. There are rumors that the rumors about the boyfriend, that they are on the fritz. Either they're not in a great position or they're likely already broken up. That came on Demois. Like I said, my friend Donna Bowling was on the Demois podcast, so be sure to tune in, give her some love, send some love your way, some love from the Zack pack. Booyah. 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 Okay. I think that's all I got for you guys. But thank you for tuning in to No Filter with Zack Peter. Please leave me a nice Apple Podcast review if you've been enjoying the show. I love reading your reviews. I love reading your messages. Continue to send them because they not only make my heart happy, but they also really do help the show, help with performance, help us rank in the charts. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I have one here. The radio dude says, love your pod. Thanks for the great info. Don't ever change. Let's get it, get it, get it. And then we also have Run One Down. Love the show, but I adore the show and love that you bring different opinions on things, but I'm completely over Blake and Justin and the daily reporting. I'm not hashtag Team Blake or hashtag Team Justin. I think they're both equally wrong and equally despicable. Just like to hear things besides giving these two egomaniacs space. There are better ways to get publicity. So I did put a poll out on Instagram. If you guys want to go and vote on at No Filter with Zack on Instagram, if you want to, I put a poll and I put opportunities to what new topics you may want me to discuss on the podcast if you are getting a bit fatigued by Blake and Baldoni stuff. So go check that out. Give me a follow. My personal account is at Just Plain Zack, and the No Filter account is at No Filter with Zack. So go follow and show some love. Zack Peter all over the internet. So go show some love. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. Love you. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of your Thursday. See you on Friday morning. Bye.